Hey guys, Stealth here. Today in this naval guide video we're looking at the anti-ship planes for REDFOR. Now as you can see there is not many of them. NATO has a lot more of these planes. If I were to switch to the NATO side you're going to see that there's a long list of naval supply units. I'm not sure why that tank is shown up here, but okay. REDFOR doesn't have that many planes. They believe in the firepower of their own ships, and that is why more of their ships are armed with ASMs than the NATO side. So, have a look at these planes. We got the A5. The A5 has 0% ECM, and that is an important measure here, because with this it is not that capable of avoiding air. So any missile fired at it might hit this plane. Also, the radar or the anti-ship missile has only 2 of them. There's only 2 of these missiles, and they carry 2 PL5 short-range air-to-air missiles. Now you can see the anti-ship missiles right here. The accuracy is pretty good on them, but the AP power is not very high. Normally, AP power for anti-ship weapons comes in the range of about 80 to 160 if you got the biggest and baddest anti-ship missiles. So having an AP power of 60 is not really very high. The good thing about the A5 is that you get a decent number of them if you bring them in. So you're going to have to swarm the enemy and try to get at least 3 planes onto the single target. So that's 6 missiles. And with that you might have 1 or 2 hits depending on the ship you're firing at. Now also keep in mind that once this thing gets detected by enemy aircraft, it is going to have to run. It cannot dodge any of those missiles, it only has 10 points of strength, so you're better off evacing this ship and waiting for the enemy air cover to dissipate before you bring in the A5 again. Because you don't you don't want to lose 100 points that often, or at least I don't. These short-range air-to-air missiles can really only be used in helicopter fights. So as a flyby versus a helicopter, but I would not recommend it because this thing is just a nice snack for air superiority fighters. Only when you're absolutely certain that there is nothing that can shoot this plane down in the area. No ships, no AA batteries, no air superiority fighters. That is when you can safely use this thing to go after helicopters. But even then, there are usually safer and better options to do that. Moving on to the MiG-29K. Now this thing is armed. You're going to see that this thing not only carries the anti-ship missiles, and it carries 4 of them. That's the large missiles underneath the wings. The smaller missiles are the R-73A Vimpels, short-range air-to-air missiles, but they're fire and forget, which is very nice. 60% accuracy, so these guys can actually do some dogfighting if you want them to. Their ECM is 40%, which means that they can dodge some missiles, and with 4 of these anti-ship missiles they can usually get 1 or 2 hits. The weak spot of these things is their range. The range is only 4375, and that means that you're going to have to get to your target and get pretty close, which is usually not something that I really feel like doing. Especially if you're facing stuff like the Congo and you're launching a salvo of these missiles at them. The MiG-29K will take a hit because the range on the Congo on the anti-air missile is just greater than the range of this weapon system. So keep in mind that if you want to engage a ship with this plane, it will have to have less range than 4375, or at least ideally. Now with the 40% ECM this plane can dodge some fire, but not a whole lot. So don't expect this thing to survive against waves and waves of anti-air missiles, because that is not what this was designed for. The Q-5B is a very cheap air superiority fighter. No, it's an anti-ship plane, and this anti-ship plane carries 2 of the YJ-8K missiles, doing 60 AP power, like the one on the MiG and the A5. So don't expect a very high damage ratio on these things. But what they can do is try to swarm the enemy. You do get a number of these which is slightly greater than the A5, I believe. And they actually have some ECM, which is nice, although it's only 10%, so still don't expect these things to last very long. Their speed is 750 versus 900 on the MiG and 750 on the A5. So these things, without ECM and with their slow speed, are pretty easily shot down. If you want to make sure that an air superiority fighter cannot have a chance when taking these things down, you need to bring in an air superiority fighter of your own. to make sure that these things are escorted. Now this missile has a range of 45-50, which is not bad, but with this series on most systems, 2 missiles is probably not going to cut it. So don't do flybys of only one plane versus one ship, because the chances of actually getting a hit with the Seawiz and some of the defensive weapon systems of the ships are not very high. So long as you keep that in mind, so long as you try to swarm the enemy, the Q-5B can be effective. A plane that is definitely effective is the Feibao. This plane is somewhat equal to the MiG, although it carries less missiles, but the missiles that it does carry have a better accuracy and have higher AP power, so if they hit, they do more damage. They have the same ECM power, 40%, same air detection, same speed. Turn radius is a lot better in the case of the MiG-29K. And the range on the Feibao is a lot better than the MiG, so they each have their own aspects. I suppose you could say that the MiG-29 is an air superiority fighter turned anti-ship weapon, whereas the Feibao is an anti-ship weapon who can also do air superiority fights if it really has to. Now this 5.6 kilometer range is very, very good, because it means that you can safely stay outside the range of your target. The problem, however, is that with the Feibao it only carries 2 missiles and it's a very expensive plane. This also means that you don't get a lot of them in your deck. So be careful as you bring these in. Bring them in groups, 2 or 3 preferably. Although 4 missiles, if you're firing with a Congo, have a good chance of being stopped by the Seawiz on it. It also carries the PL-11 air-to-air missile. It is a semi-active missile, so don't expect this thing to hit if you evac the plane. The plane will have to keep an eye on its target in order for this thing to hit. Range is 6.3 kilometers. It does not have a range against helicopters. Accuracy again isn't stellar, only 40%. So the Feibao is a decent option, but I right now prefer the MiG-29K over it because it has just more missiles. Now the plane that I also like is this one. It's the Su-27K. And the Su-27 has a bit higher speed, a bit higher air detection, a bit more ECM. It carries fire and forget Vimpels over a range of 7 kilometers, but it only carries 1 anti-ship missile. That means that this is again a case of an airplane which is an air superiority fighter turned anti-ship weapon. Do not expect these muskets to penetrate if they're fired by themselves. While they do a ton of damage, 120 AP power, getting these things on target versus the Seawiz off the target is not easy. So either use a lot of planes in order to get more volume of fire onto the target, or make sure that you group them up with some other planes. If you group them up with, for example, a couple of MiG-29Ks or Feibaos, which have a better range, you can be sure that if these Feibao missiles are shot down, maybe the musket will make it through and inflict heavy damage on your target. Also, if you're out of air superiority fighters and you can bring in this unit, so if you have a naval section in your deck and a naval reinforcement zone in your battle space or in your map, you can use these things as air superiority fighters. Keep in mind though that for dogfighting they're no good because they don't have any short range air-to-air missiles. So the only effective anti-air missile that they have is the Vimpel, the R-77, and those can shoot things down at long range, but try not to get this thing too close to enemy air defenses or to enemy airplanes altogether. Because while the turn radius is good, these Vimpels cannot lock on at close range, and that leaves only the main autocannon for this plane. So another quick video on REDFOR, simply because they don't have as many units as BLUEFOR. Maybe this will change as DLC 3 hits the servers, I'm not sure. But for now, this is the end of the video. So please like the video if you found it useful. If you have a question, leave it down below, and if you want more videos, subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, see you next video.